What's up everyone, Jeremy Gerard from Mythic Customs here with one of my short customizing tutorial videos. In this video I'm going to show you a painting technique that I call a paint wipe. Some people might call it a paint wash. I call it a paint wipe because we're literally going to paint something and then wipe the paint off. Now why would we do that? To achieve a certain effect. I'm going to change the camera in a minute so you can actually see me do it, but what we're going to paint here is this sword, this kind of big buster sword. This one actually came with the Mythic Legions Deluxe Legion Builder Barbarian figure, but this has been available with a number of different figures in the past. This is a really cool piece to do this on because it's got these like runes that are actually part of the sculpture, and that's what we're going to be painting. We want to be able to paint those runes, highlight those without painting the actual sword around it. If you've watched my videos in the past, you know I do a lot of dry brushing, right? I love dry brushing. This is almost like the anti-dry brushing. So what we're going to do is with dry brushing, you put the paint on your brush and then you dry it off a lot on a paper towel. So when you actually start painting something, there's very little paint on the brush that's actually hitting the item that you're painting. What that does is it only gets the raised surface areas. We want to do the exact opposite here. We want to use a very wet brush with a lot of wet paint on it because we want that paint to flow into the crevices. We want it to get into all of those runes there. Then what we're going to do is we're going to take a paper towel and we're going to wipe off the paint that's on the sword itself. Now it works great for a weapon like this because it's a long flat surface. So we can do a nice clean wipe. We'll be able to get the paint all off the surface of the blade, but that as we're rubbing along the surface, as we're wiping along the surface, it won't get those crevices, it won't get all those runes, so it'll just leave the paint in those runes behind. That's what we're going for. You can do this with a lot of other stuff. Any time that you want to do something when you want to paint the crevices, but you don't want the exposed areas to be painted, you can use this technique. Sometimes it's harder, like if you're doing an actual head, say that you were painting an actual figure's head, because it's not all a flat surface, sometimes you're going to have a hard time wiping all of that off. So this is definitely a trial and error, but another technique that you can use for your painting. So let me pause this really quick and I'll come back and I'll change the camera angle. Okay, so we're back here. So what I've got is I've got my paint tray here. You can see that I've put some red paint in one of the little pieces here, one of the little trays, and then I've got my sword. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to dip my paintbrush in that red paint. I want to get it really, really wet. And what I'm going to do is, as I said, I'm going to paint right on top of that surface area there. So I want it to be wet. I want to make sure it gets into all those crevices. Now, before this dries at all, I'm going to get my paper towel and I'm just going to wipe that off. Okay? Super simple. That is how easy that is. You can see I've got no paint really around it, but I've got it right in that crevice. So let's try that again. Painting right in those crevices there. Make sure it's nice and wet, gets in all that area. And then immediately grab my paper towel. Wipe it off. So that's what we end up with. We end up with that paint right in those crevices, right in those runes, kind of highlights them, but we didn't get the sword itself. Super simple effect, super simple little paint effect that we've got there. Let me pause this real quick. I'm losing some focus a little bit as I'm moving around the camera. So there you go, super quick paint effect. And again, this is something you can try on different pieces. This is something when you want to get in those crevices, the anti-dry brushing type effect, paint wipe is what I call it. You can do that. Wet paintbrush, a lot of paint carefully, don't just, one thing I was careful not to do was not slop it on so much that I got it around that part of the sword, because that part of the sword, if I would have hit there, it would have gotten right in the crevices, right around the edges there, and I would have had a really hard time wiping it out of the edges. This is actually similar to what I do. I have another video here about like oxidation effects, right? Where you paint it, and then when you wipe it off, it just stays in those crevices. It's a similar type effect, but you got to be careful, like on something like this, that you only get it on those runes. So when you wipe it off that flat blade, it wipes really, really cleanly and nicely. Thank you very much for checking this out. If you find videos like this helpful, please give the channel a like, and give the video a like, give the channel a subscribe, so you'll be notified when I do other videos like this. And if you have any questions, hit me up in the comments. I'm always happy to answer any questions you may have. Until next time, I can't wait to see what you make.